They departed, the gods, on the day of the strange tide. All morning the waters swelled and swelled, rising to unheard-of heights.
And that's exactly where we have to start this, isn't it? That line. It's not just about the water rising. It's that feeling, that chilling sense of finality that gives you, a malignantly agleam sea that promises nothing but oblivion.
And the idea that the gods just left, a sudden vacancy.
Cosmic vacancy, yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We are immersing ourselves today in what is an incredibly stylized and I think often unbearably honest memoir.
Absolutely.
It's the memoir of Max Morden. He's our narrator, a new widower who is retreating to this coastal village, Ballyless, in Ireland. And he says it himself. He's there to live amidst the rubble of the past.
And our source material is his account, his attempt to piece it all together.
Right. It's this book he's writing, or trying to write. It covers his life right now, a year after his wife Anna's excruciating death.
And at the same time, it's flashing back 50 years.
50 years to this pivotal, tragic, and profoundly erotic childhood summer.
And that's the whole mission of this deep dive, really. It's that duality. We have to try and understand how Max Morden is attempting to reconcile these two versions of himself.
And mostly failing, it seems.
Mostly failing, yes. The boy he was, the one who was consumed by this almost pagan, erotic awakening.
With the man he is now, this aging, grieving man.
And to do that, we have to navigate the treachery of his memory. Because for Max, memory isn't just a recording. It's not a passive archive.
No, it's an active force.
It's an active, almost corrosive force. It distorts things, it embellishes, and at the end of the day, it absolutely refuses to give him what he's so desperately searching for.
Which is?
A coherent self, a unified identity.
And I think what makes this so relevant,
Yeah.
and what we want you to really think about as you listen, is that this is fundamentally a story about information overload.
That's a great way to put it.
When we talk about trauma or this kind of monumental loss, what we're really talking about is an information crisis inside your own head. Max Morden is just drowning in all these conflicting data points. You've got the sublime beauty of this remembered past on one hand.
And the grotesque physical reality of Anna's death on the other.
So when you're confronted with two such distinct periods of immense trauma, where do you even begin to locate your true, stable self?
It's the ultimate question, isn't it? Are you the sum of your memories? Or are you maybe just the ghost of the self that those memories have, in the end, failed to capture?
So Max's retreat, his attempt to find answers, it begins at a place called the Cedars.
And this place is significant. It's the very same house where the Grace family stayed 50 years ago.
Now it's a lodging house run by a Miss Vavasseur, or Miss V, as he calls her.
And he's clearly gone there seeking something, right? A dose of nostalgia, maybe some kind of restorative connection to that summer?
You'd think. But his immediate reaction is it's intense disorientation. He uses the words amazed and disappointed. I would go so far as to say appalled.
Appalled by how little the place has changed in half a century. And that shock, right at the start, is so crucial. It really sets the stage for the whole psychological conflict of the narrative.
Why appalled? Why not comforted?
Because the real dusty past doesn't conform to the idealized aesthetic past he's been carrying around in his head for 50 years. The Cedars it's still recognizable, but it's a bit dilapidated. It's the architecture of his own fractured mind.
So he's looking for a shrine.
He's looking for a shrine to the summer of the gods, and what he finds is just dusty reality.
And the physical description of the house, it just mirrors his internal state perfectly. He calls it a jumbled look.
Right, with small rooms that lead unexpectedly into bigger ones.
And windows that, bizarrely, just face blank walls.
It's a maze.
It's a complete maze. He wants privacy. He wants this space for recollection. But the house itself traps him in these architectural non sequiturs.
Absolutely. The house is a maze of bad connections, a place of total internal contradiction. And he tries to romanticize it,
How so?
He imagines the pitch pine floors sound a nautical note. And he has this fantasy of an old seafarer, landlubbered at last, finally dozing peacefully by the fire.
That's the role he wants to play.
That's the role, the man who has weathered the storm and finally found some kind of tranquility. But the reality is completely different. He feels perpetually suspended. He calls himself a revenant.
A ghost.
A ghost of himself, both, as he says, immured in the moment and yet hovering somehow on the point of departure.
And this ghost he's far from tranquil. His emotional state a year after Anna's death It's dominated by something really specific, and it's not what you'd call simple grief.
No.
It's embarrassment.
Embarrassment. It's such a telling choice of word.
He calls it a panic-stricken sense of not knowing what to say, where to look, how to behave. And this feeling culminates in a surly annoyance at the whole predicament.
That word, predicament, it's incredible. It reduces this monumental human tragedy, the loss of his partner, to an inconvenient social situation he's handling badly.
It reveals this profound shame he feels, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just for being the one who survived.
Exactly. And that shame, that sense of having failed in the face of death, it leads directly to the central theme of dissembling.
Okay, let's unpack that, because he sees dissembling as the only way to move forward after Anna's diagnosis.
Well, when they get the news from the doctor, Mr. Todd, a name Max finds to be a joke in bad taste.
Of course.
When they're in those, cold glass and steel rooms, Max feels that a secret had been imparted to us so dirty, so nasty, that they were basically bound together by this awful knowledge.
And so they had to lie.
They had to lie. Constantly. Yeah. Dissembling, for Max, it isn't just about avoiding painful conversations. It's about constructing a usable, false reality.
So it's the truth, the fact that Anna's going to die.
If that's unbearable, then the only option you have is to act as if it's not happening. Or maybe act as if you're immune to its effects. He's dissembling his grief, his fear, his own inadequacy.
And his body isn't letting him get away with it. It starts to confirm all this internal chaos through this really intense hypochondria.
Yeah, this isn't just, normal nervousness. He is actively diagnosing himself. He's obsessing over pins and needles in the extremities.
Because he knows that was an early symptom of MS, which Anna had.
Precisely. And he experiences these sudden, severe burning jabs, these pricking sensations like fate is just randomly poking him to test his resilience.
It's like a morbid form of participation almost.
It is. Anna used to call him Dr. Max for how he fussed over her health, and now he's turned that same neurotic gaze inward.
So the hypochondria is, what, an attempt to claim the illness for himself?
Maybe, or to share the suffering, or maybe to control the physical decline he witnessed in Anna by, meticulously mapping out his own. He's trying to diagnose the revenant he feels he's become.
So while he's dissecting his own internal decay, he's also got to navigate the other inhabitants of the Cedars.
Mm-hmm.
And we meet Colonel Blunden, who's just this magnificent figure of repression.
He really is.
Described as vertical man itself, from his glossy brogues all the way up to his conical skull. He gets his hair cut every single Saturday.
Short back and sides, no quarter given.
Exactly.
Blunden is Max's immediate foil, right? He is the epitome of disciplined performance. He embodies this rigid male ideal that Max knows he can never, ever achieve.
He's an overperformer.
A total overperformer of the old soldier part, right down to the way he eats and speaks. But Max, with his sharp observer's eye, he notices the cracks.
The slight Belfast Catholic accent.
The furtive trip to Mass. He's performing an identity, just like Max is performing the grieving widower/Bonnard scholar.
But Blunden's real tragedy isn't his possibly fake identity, is it? It's his fear of silence.
That's it. He's completely reliant on talk radio. He needs that company to fill the profound loneliness, especially during the empty hours of the afternoon.
Which is a fear Max clearly shares. Though Max tries to fill his silence with memory, not with radio static.
Exactly. Max tries to occupy himself with these intellectual pursuits, which brings us to Miss Vavasor and her friend Bun.
Right. Miss V is nervous, always frowning, but she's the one who subtly mocks the Colonel.
She dubs him Colonel Blunder.
Yeah, and that little private rebellion, it hints that she has her own hidden depths.
And those depths just explode open in this one almost passing remark she makes about the Graces.
Right. Max is probing her about the past, and she eventually confesses something. She says she misses Mrs. Grace.
Connie, not Mr. Grace.
And then she just casually reveals that Bun, whose real name is Vivienne, was her friend.
It's a devastating moment of recognition for Max, and it's also a subtle rebuke from the narrative itself. I mean, Max has spent 50 years seeing that summer as this grand heterosexual drama, defined by Carlo and Connie's unstable marriage and the affair with Rose.
But this suggests something else was going on entirely.
It suggests that equally significant, unspoken queer dramas were unfolding right under the nose of young Max. Dramas he was completely socially and emotionally blind to.
Wow.
The past isn't just unreliable, it's vast. And Max only saw the part of it that fed his own burgeoning erotic fantasy.
And that blindness is perfectly reflected in his inability to perform his current identity, which brings us to his big intellectual alibi.
The monograph on the painter Pierre Bonnard.
Right. Ostensibly, he's there writing about the Baignoires series, where Bonnard depicted his wife, Marthe, constantly bathing, a practice the artist continued even after she died.
And this parallel is just profoundly unsettling for Max, isn't it? Marthe, in Bonnard's paintings, is often shown as attenuated, ageless, as much dead as alive.
Which mirrors Anna's own routine near the end, taking these long, extended baths.
Max describes the silence of those final baths as terrifying. He'd creep to the door, just overwhelmed by the fear that she might have slipped down without a sound.
That she might have been erased by the very water that was supposed to be soothing her.
It's less about art history for him and more about his own inability to immortalize Anna the way Bonnard immortalized Martha.
Right. Bonnard managed to capture Marthe in this eternal, almost larval state. He helped her escape the temporal reality of aging and death.
And Max's monograph is his attempt to intellectualize his way around his own failure to truly grasp Anna, to use art as a shield, but the shield just fails.
She shatters.
Completely. He realizes with this crushing certainty that he has nothing of any originality to say about Bonnard. He calls himself a middling man, suffering from the terrible freedom of not having the curse of perpetuance.
The curse of perpetuance. That sounds like the artistic impulse, the drive to make something that lasts forever, to leave a mark.
And Max is admitting he just doesn't have it. He's confessing his own artistic inadequacy.
He's a writer, a scholar, who fundamentally cannot transform his own experience, no matter how traumatic, into enduring art.
His life is just lived. It's not expressed. And that admission is what defines his whole identity crisis. He recognizes that the leisurely life he's living right now, sitting in that sea captain's chair, is exactly what his younger self wished for.
But the style of that imagined future was all wrong.
All wrong. He wanted something antique, nostalgic, for the world between the wars, complete with slouched hats and humberhawks.
A life that felt authentic because it was already old-fashioned. A life that already had the patina of history.
And now he finds himself living the reality of that dream, but without the right aesthetic. And so he's forced to see himself as a parody of myself.
And his own ghost.
An indistinct someone whose fiercest wish, ironically, was always to become an indistinct no one. To escape the shame of his origins, his present self is just an unsuccessful imitation of a past fantasy. It confirms his status as the eternal imposter.
To really understand that desperate need he has to be an indistinct no one, we have to go back 50 years. We have to look at the shame-filled life he was so desperate to escape. Max's childhood summers were spent in a place called The Field, in a tiny 3-room chalet.
Oil lamps, paraffin stove. It's a life defined by physical constraint.
And emotional violence. The memory he has of his parents is just painted with brutal clarity. He recalls them rancorously playing at house in the childhood of the world.
A domestic life that was just a constant high-pitched discord, an unceasing buzz just beyond hearing.
His father, he says, was a violent man, a man of violent gestures, violent jokes.
But also profoundly timid. He eventually just runs off to England.
And Max, the boy, is the disgusted observer of all of this. He watches his parents bathing, his mother wallowing mistrustfully, his father grabbing her and splashing her, and he finds these edgy larks just shaming.
He wishes he could cancel them, would have popped them like bubbles of sea spray.
It's such a violent image.
It's the critical engine for his later voyeurism, for his search for the graces. Max's childhood world is just defined by vulgarity and this inescapable rancor.
So he becomes obsessed with class, with escape.
He's seeking a sublime, refined form of drama that his own low-rent existence could never, ever provide. And so the Graces, when they arrive, they're not just rich neighbors.
They're deities.
Literal deities,
Yeah.
descended to elevate his reality.
They're the house renters. They pull up to the Cedars in a black car, and they have this level of casual wealth that Max just idolizes.
They're impressively equipped on the beach, with folding chairs and actual teacups.
And they have the social confidence to just ignore the indignant stares of the even wealthier hotel dwellers. They exist in this separate, idealized world.
And instantly, Max focuses all of that desperate desire for elevation onto one person.
Connie Grace.
Mrs. Grace.
She is immediately deified. She becomes his singular, intense obsession. She is the pagan awakening itself.
The description of Connie is so sophisticated because he doesn't just fetishize how she looks, he fetishizes her reality.
She's blonde. She wears this tight, dark swimsuit that looks lustrous as sealskin, and she smokes. But he fixates on her smell. This visceral mix of sweat and cold cream and faintly of cooking fat.
And that sensory detail is the key to her godliness, I think. She's not some remote ideal. Max finds her wholly, real, thick-meated, edible almost.
She's the perfect convergence of an imaginative wraith, the goddess he can fantasize about.
An unavoidable flesh and blood, of fiber and musk and milk. She's powerful because she's both aspirational and physically undeniably tangible.
And his fantasies, he admits, were all about rescue.
Right. He would save her from some catastrophe, sequester her in a conveniently dry and warm cave.
Then tenderly help her out of her sopping swimsuit and wrap a towel around her phosphorescent nudity.
It's a classic erotic fantasy, but it's layered with this immense tenderness, which contrasts so sharply with the violent, graceless sexuality he saw between his own parents.
But observing Connie in her natural element, it complicates that fantasy.
It does. At the beach, she's running and leaping, playing ball with her children. Her skirt is billowing, her breasts are bouncing.
And her husband, Carlo Grace, is watching her with this incredibly complex look. Max calls it arousal, amusement, and faint contempt.
He gets the sense that Carlos seems to want to see her fall down in the sand and hurt herself.
Like he wants to punish the goddess for her own vitality.
Exactly. And this tension between the imagined goddess and the observed woman, it leads to Max's pivotal moment of voyeurism, a trait he later confesses is part of his little brute self.
The picnic scene.
The picnic scene. Connie is lying on the grass, one leg flexed, and it allows Max this momentary view under her skirt right up to the plump mound there sheathed in tensed white cotton.
His physical reaction is immediate, overwhelming.
The drumbeat in his temples temporarily dims the daylight. It's pure, unfiltered excitement. But the instant she moves her leg and falls asleep with shocking suddenness,
the sublime just collapses into the mundane.
The excitement is gone, and it's replaced by a sour sense of deflation.
And that deflation is the catalyst for this huge psychological shift. She is instantly transformed. She goes from a demon temptress
back into mere woman again, a mortal woman.
And Max feels shame. But it's not for his own voyeurism.
No, he feels shame for her mortality, for her commonness.
He can't bear the idea that the object of his transcendent desire is just flesh and blood, subject to gravity and sleep.
It's the moment Max realizes that the gods he's been seeking are just humans, flawed and mortal. And this inability to cope with human imperfection, it's going to reappear 50 years later when he's confronted with Anna's physical decline.
So if Connie is the flawed goddess, then Carlo Grace is the ultimate malevolent deity.
The laughing deity, the Poseidon of our summer.
He's shorter than Connie. He's bearded, with ice blue eyes and sharp little teeth. He just radiates command and danger.
Carlo embodies this really unsettling, casual cruelty. His whole behavior is about performative, feigned rage and this constant, unsettling aggression.
He twists Chloe's hair mid-sentence.
He makes these southern sham grabs at people's throats. He mocks the postman for the silent delight of his children. Max understands immediately that this man is the source of the divine danger in their summer.
And that danger seems aimed directly at his son, Miles.
Yes. Carlo shows this clear disdain for the mute boy. He says he avoids him when he can, and he growls dismissively that Miles will talk when he has something to say.
That parental cruelty is so significant.
It is. Carlo's dismissal of Miles, the boy who is never silent but cannot speak, it just foregrounds this theme of communication failure and lack of empathy that haunts the entire narrative.
So Max, who grew up wishing his own parents could be canceled.
He sees in Carlo a different, colder kind of parental failure, one that treats a child's affliction with just outright contempt. And the twins, Chloe and Miles, they are ultimately the victims caught in the gravitational pull of these powerful, volatile gods.
And the twins, Chloe and Miles, they really are the physical manifestation of that whole chaotic summer, aren't they?
They are. Max is both fascinated and deeply unnerved by their awful depth of intimacy.
They are strikingly alike. He observes that they operate like two magnets, constantly pulling and pushing.
A single mind in two bodies. Yeah. And Max finds that unity almost indecent. It's like an invasion of privacy. Because their shared consciousness seems to negate individuality. And that's alarming to a boy who is trying so desperately to construct his own singular identity away from his shameful parents.
And Miles's condition just compounds that feeling of the abnormal. He's mute from birth, and the doctors are baffled or skeptical.
Right. And Max notes that Miles said nothing but was never silent. He's constantly fidgeting, making those dry little clicking noises at the back of his throat.
He's a palpable absence of sound, but a constant presence of anxiety.
And how do his parents interact with this singularity? Through improvised, brusque, dumb show.
Which Max interprets less as a loving effort to communicate.
And more as an impatient waving of him out of their sight. It reinforces this tragic perception that Miles is treated like a bothersome fixture, a poltergeist, rather than a son.
Sometime after that picnic scene, Max's affections transfer. It's subtle, but it's complete. He moves from Connie to Chloe.
Yeah, and he later realizes this was probably less about real affection for Chloe and more about getting access to the Grace's sublime, forbidden world.
And that access is sealed by the kiss.
The kiss in the dark of the corrugated iron picture house. Max remembers feeling as if they were flying without effort, dream slowly through the dense, powdery darkness.
It's a moment of total ecstasy for him. A total escape from his grounded, shabby reality.
But Chloe, just like her mother, is unpredictable and dangerous. She's alarming.
There's that forceful kiss on the beach that makes him taste blood.
And then there's the sudden, totally motiveless slap across the face in the Cedars living room. The emotional logic behind her violence is completely opaque to him.
So Chloe is functioning as an agent of chaos, and also of shame.
She's teaching him that intimacy is inseparable from pain and humiliation. It mirrors the aggressive intimacy of his own parents, but on this more refined, mysterious level. And the swim dare is the perfect crystallization of that lesson.
The dare where she tells him, "Go on quick, I've just done a pee," and challenges him to swim between her legs.
Only to label him disgusting the moment he surfaces.
It's an act of power. She's wielding biological reality and immediate shame as a tool.
And Max, who is fundamentally obsessed with avoiding shame, he submits to it to prove his devotion, but he's instantly punished and branded. The experience cements his relationship with female sexuality as a source of powerful, unpredictable rejection.
So his awareness of the Grace's complex internal dramas is developing, and it leads him to Rose.
Right, the slender, pale young woman staying with them. Max notices that Rose, with her Picasso-like profile and her nose deflected slightly to the left. She's described differently from the Graces.
How so?
He calls her a completed portrait, unlike the Graces, who he's constantly trying to rework and refine in his memory.
So she represents a kind of static, defined beauty, which is maybe why he doesn't fixate on her erotically. She's already finished.
That's a good point. But the central betrayal, which Max witnesses while he's hiding in a tree, it concerns Rose. He sees her sobbing, and then Connie comes to comfort her.
And this is where he understands. Rose is romantically involved with Carlo Grace.
The satyr's rough embrace.
But the real shock for Max isn't the affair itself. He kind of expected some melodrama from his gods.
Right. It's Connie's reaction to Rose's distress.
He expected a classical tragedy. Jealous rage, scratching at her eyes, something like that.
Instead, Connie's reaction is playfully coaxing, calmly received. There's a note of lightness. What amusement.
This casual acceptance of transgression is just utterly foreign to Max's rigidly moral, shame-ridden worldview.
The gods are not morally ordered. They are simply complex and indifferent. And that complexity is, in itself, terrifying.
And this summer of awakening, confusion, and betrayal, it all climaxes with the shocking, irreversible deaths of the twins.
The atmosphere is set by the strange tide, this waveless, unstoppable surge that unnerves everyone. It blurs the line between the land and the sea.
It's a perfect metaphor for the creeping nature of doom, isn't it? It's not a sudden disaster, it's this inexorable, quiet rise.
And Max even notes that he might be confusing the details. He remembers the marum grass inscribed a neat half circle in the sand, but he admits that detail might belong to another day.
So meta-memory is already at work, editing the preamble to the tragedy.
And Chloe, sitting on the beach right before they go into the water, she expresses this raw hatred for Rose. It's a final, fierce declaration.
I hope she gets drowned. I hate her.
And then she and Miles just wade out and swim away slowly. They become pale dots until one of the dots disappeared. A splash, a little white water.
Then nothing. The indifferent world closing.
That phrase, the indifferent world closing, it's the ultimate theological statement of the whole story. The gods didn't depart in a storm. They departed with a shrug.
But Max's internal experience is the absolute opposite of indifference.
Oh, yeah. He erupts in this massive moment of self-awe. He describes the strongest thing he felt as a sense of awe of myself, that is, who had known two living creatures that now were suddenly astoundingly dead.
He elevates himself.
He elevates himself to the high priest of the tragedy. It is his first major act of self-definition, and it's achieved through vicarious loss.
And he imagines them suspended upright.
Their arms linked and their eyes wide open, gazing gravely before them into illimitable depths of light. This vision is the ultimate aesthetic apotheosis. It transforms grotesque reality into perfect frozen art. Max, the boy, finds his identity in the horror that he's witnessed.
So the crisis is the present Anna's terminal illness and her death. It's like a dark mirror image of that childhood tragedy.
It is, but this time Max is not the ecstatic observer.
No, he's the helpless partner, and the resulting feeling is just overwhelming shame.
Anna herself notes that her experience is an absolute, a singularity. It's something she can't even grasp herself. She just feels a general sense of agitation, a sort of interior fizzing.
The inability of language to capture the singularity of death is so profound there. And for Max, the impending loss is just a constant source of this isolating shame.
He couldn't deal with the approaching soundless clapping of the leper's bell preceding her. It wasn't just grief for him. It was the social and physical horror of watching the person you love dissolve.
Which is why dissembling became their pact, their only mechanism for survival.
Right. But that dissembling leads to this profound moment of artistic separation between them. Anna, who trained as a photographer, returns to her craft right at the beginning of the end.
But she does it in secret. She has her daughter Claire retrieve the camera, explicitly not wanting Max to know.
And that secrecy, I think, it just underscores Anna's need to find her own reality, to capture her singularity before it vanishes. Her art becomes a refuge from Max's gaze and his need to manage the trauma through denial or intellectualization.
She seeks reality with her disenchanting eye.
And she starts this really unsettling project. She wheels her drip feed stand, which he calls her dumbwaiter, through the hospital wards,
taking these stark, unflinching photographs of the other grievously marked and maimed patients.
It's a radical shift from her earlier work, the moody early morning studies, all soot and raw silver.
Yeah.
Now she's confronting the raw, ugly reality of the body as it fails, and the resulting images are horrific in their detail.
Amputations with suture lines that look like a prototype of a zip fastener. A missing breast, a hydrocephalic baby, arthritic hands knotted like root ginger.
And a boy with a canker on his cheek who's grinning and giving a double thumbs-up sign.
But what Max finds truly shocking isn't the wounds themselves, as devastating as they are. It's the subject's demeanor.
Right. They display their afflictions with this shocking, calmly smiling way, sometimes with definite pride.
He calls it the sorority of the afflicted.
And this is the critical psychological moment that undermines Max's entire system of shame. These patients have transcended his obsession with embarrassment, they've accepted their suffering, and they're displaying it with this defiant, self-possessed pride.
They're members of a terrible, singular club that excludes Max.
The healthy bystander who is too ashamed to even look directly at his own grief. Anna is capturing an authentic reality that Max, the dissembler, is completely incapable of facing.
And the pinnacle of this project, maybe the most disturbing image he describes, is the low-angled study of a large, wild-haired woman.
With splayed legs, displaying what he presumes is a prolapsed womb.
And Max's reaction is to immediately try to intellectualize this horror. He compares the composition to William Blake's prophetic books.
Of course he does. He sees the inverted triangle of space between her legs as a blank patch of parchment in way of a fiery inscription, and the woman's Medusa head appears perfectly at ease above it, smiling with that definite pride.
Why Blake? Why is that comparison so important for him?
It's a desperate attempt to contain the image, to turn this grotesque biological reality into transcendent art. He's trying to force structure onto something that is radically formless and offensive.
So he wants to believe that even this terrifying depiction of the failing female body is waiting for a meaning, a fiery inscription.
A meaning which he, as the scholar, should be able to provide. But the photograph itself offers no inscription. It only offers the raw, defiant acceptance of the afflicted woman.
And this stands in such direct contrast to his own failed monograph on Bernard.
Exactly. He's surrounded by these powerful artistic representations of death and decay, Bernard's subtle immortalization, Anna's stark reality, and yet he is unable to create anything original or lasting himself.
His intellectual pursuits just confirm his status as the middling man.
Right. Anna, facing extinction, found the artistic courage to stare unflinchingly at the body's dissolution. Max, safe and healthy, could only fail to write about a subject that already mirrored his own tragedy.
And reflecting on their marriage, he confesses the fundamental devastating flaw.
Which is?
He says he did not want to know Anna. He saw her only as a medium for fulfilling the fantasy of myself.
What a confession. It just reveals the profound inadequacy of their entire union. The unspoken pact, he realizes, was just to relieve each other of the burden of being the people everyone else expected them to be.
It was a pact of shared escape, not shared intimacy.
And when reality in the form of terminal illness intruded, the pact shattered because the true, unique self of Anna was revealed, and Max just couldn't cope with that singularity.
This emotional distance all culminates in the final, agonizing moment of her life. He steps outside the hospital room to breathe the black and lustrous air of mourning.
And in that brief moment, he misses her final breath.
It is the ultimate failure of the bystander. He was the watcher, the observer, the self-appointed high priest of tragedy in his youth.
And now, in the face of his greatest personal loss, he misses the curtain fall. He returns to find her looking at him with a commanding sternness.
And her last words, a conspiratorial whisper, are the ultimate act of defiance. She says, "They are stopping the clocks. I have stopped time."
What a monumental claim. Anna, defeated by the body, asserts complete mastery over temporal reality. She declares that the singularity of her death is so absolute that it has frozen the moment.
It's her final, definitive work of art.
And Max, the failed writer, can only stand there and witness it. It contrasts so powerfully with the indifferent world closing around the twins 50 years earlier. Anna refuses indifference. She demands that her death be the definitive moment.
So after Anna has stopped time, Max is just marooned in his own.
He is. And he's overwhelmed by his imposter syndrome. He confesses he was always ashamed of his humble origins. He was always bent on bettering myself.
And now, facing grief, he just feels like a complete imposter, a bystander who merely watched his wife die.
And that shame spirals into this almost messianic desire for validation, for an ultimate meaning, a feeling that only intensifies during this violent storm that sweeps through Ballyless.
Right. He experiences a state of histrionic euphoria. He's anticipating an apotheosis.
He starts to believe his entire life has been nothing but a rehearsal, and the real drama is about to begin.
He needs to be expressed, delivered, like a noble closing speech, and ultimately said.
This need to be said, it's Max's attempt to resolve his artistic inadequacy and his existential lack of coherence.
So as a writer who failed to write an original work,
he wants his life to become the successful monograph, the complete, legible text. He wants to be transformed from messy, shamed flesh into the gossamer of unsuffering spirit.
The self freed from the body's decay and the burden of memory.
Yes. He wants his existence to have a literary structure, a finality that he failed to create for anyone else or for himself.
But the very source material he needs for that final, noble speech, his own memory, is actively betraying him.
It is. He notes how the image of Anna is fraying. Bits of pigments, flakes of gold leaf are chipping off.
And his deepest fear is so palpable, he asks, will the entire canvas be empty one day?
The coherence he craves is impossible because memory is inherently unstable. He realizes that the real past matters so much less than the imagined past, the one we construct to make sense of the present.
He grapples with a specific anecdote. He vividly recalls sitting with Chloe in the Strand Cafe after their big kiss, drinking ice cream soda.
But then he realizes the time of day, the light, the whole context, it's chronologically impossible. It couldn't have happened that way.
So Madame Memory isn't just fading, she's actively remixing the past. She's editing the script.
Which shows Max that his entire sense of self is built on a narrative that he himself has subtly falsified over the years.
That must be a shocking realization for someone who holds the past in such high, almost pagan regard.
It is. He recognizes that the past is mutable, it's prone to contamination, and this leads him to focus on an emblem of something that felt final, precious, and irretrievable.
The memory of a robbed robin's nest he found as a boy?
Yes. The nest, with its broken egg, it becomes this universal symbol of fragile loss. It connects the child Max to the grieving Max.
And he remembered the detail of the broken egg.
One egg was smashed on the ground. A smear of yolk and fragments of shell with tiny dark brown spots. And then his memory immediately contaminates that image with a present-day detail.
What's that?
He notes that those spots are exactly like the freckles on the face of Avril, the Duignan girl he's just met upon his return to Ballyless.
So the past isn't just leaving marks on the present. The present is retroactively altering the past's pigment.
And he connects the broken egg to Anna's vulnerability. He recalls her burning brow pressed in my palm, full and frail as an ostrich egg, during her final days.
Memory is just this corrosive force of relentless, involuntary juxtaposition.
It doesn't offer understanding. It just slams two disparate traumas together, the broken egg and Anna's death, and asks, what's the difference between these two losses?
So after all this introspection, what does Max ultimately seek? He still seems to be searching for an external answer.
He is. He wants confirmation and explanation for the twins' death that summer. He tries to broach his deepest questions with Miss Vavasor, hoping she or Bunn can provide the final key to that hidden history.
But the mystery remains unsolved.
It does. Miss V just smiles and delivers the final, definitive narrative shrug. She says, I can't help you. You must know that.
The secrets of that summer belong to the past. And those who are still alive, like Bunn who was there, they will not or cannot provide the satisfying closure that Max requires.
The house itself has shrugged off his drama. Just like the ocean did on that day, he recalls swimming alone in the hazed sea.
Right. The water was perfectly transparent, and he saw his own feet, pallid and alien. He sees himself from a distance, completely disconnected.
And then comes that final, momentous nothing. Suddenly, the entire sea surged in a driving heave. It lifted him, carried him a short way.
And then set him down as if nothing had happened.
A great world shrug of indifference.
And that ultimate indifference is the finding of this memoir, isn't it? Max Morden's dual obsession with the erotic memory of the goddess Connie Grace and the tragic, shameful memory of Anna's death is ultimately a search for a coherent, meaningful self in a universe that just refuses to confirm its existence.
He's trapped in a continuous loop of shame, voyeurism, curiosity, and artistic inadequacy. He feels more like a palpable absence, a darkness visible.
His entire journey, from that shabby chalet to the Cedars, is defined by his attempt to transform life's messy, painful reality into an aesthetic object, a noble closing speech.
Yet the world only gives him that overwhelming momentary heave and then puts him down right where he started, telling him nothing happened.
So both the tragedy of childhood and the tragedy of adulthood, they left Max Morden, the survivor, just standing there, looking out at the indifferent world, incapable of moving forward or fully understanding the past.
That's the tragic conclusion, I think. Anna's final act was to declare that she had stopped time. The twin deaths he witnessed were described as the indifferent world closing. So if memory is constantly betraying us, giving us fragments of pigment and falsified chronologies, and if our loved ones ultimately disappear into mere dust of the dead, how do we differentiate the experience of living from the experience of waiting for life to be said?
A good question.
Perhaps that noble closing speech is the one thing we must write for ourselves, knowing the audience, the indifferent world, will never truly listen.